Dub Nation. After the final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dub's OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
All right, welcome in. It is Dub's OT and with JD and Greg Silver, and we're from Minnesota, and the Warriors season is over. Timberwolves win in 5. 121-110 is the final. So for one final time this season for 2024-25, we've got Dub's OT and a lot to get to as we begin the show here on YouTube. And we will be joining the program on KNBR coming up at the right around the top of the 10 o'clock hour back home. As you can see, I am in Minneapolis at Target Center, where the Warriors saw their season come to an end about 10 minutes or so ago. Again, guys, we'll start here and we'll get to the comments. It's the best YouTube chat in sports. And so we'll get to a lot of comments here tonight. And I'll reiterate this when we get onto the radio side of things coming up at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. Tonight is a night really for fans to process a number of different things. It's a season that has ended, and there are going to be thoughts as to why this season was successful or maybe not successful in certain kind of ways. It really is a twofold show tonight. It's a we can get into and it's I think we should start with just the game tonight and then kind of extend out to the series as a whole as the Warriors get beat in 5. But then as we kind of make our way through the night, there's going to be a lot of what did we learn about this team from this series? What did we learn about the way this team played without Steph Curry? What did we learn about the playoffs as a whole that relate to what is going to be a truly pivotal offseason for the Golden State Warriors as they gear back up to try and make one more run toward a title as they watch the Timberwolves advance to the Western Conference Finals for a second consecutive year, getting the win against the Warriors at Target Center. So I'll open it up here. We do have Greg Silver. We do have Kyle Haar. Again, the best YouTube chat in sports. And once we head over at the top of the hour to the radio side of things, we'll be taking calls at 808 KNBR and 415-808-5627 here on the Sports Leader. So tonight, I thought at times the Warriors really battled and prevented the game from being a complete and utter blowout, but they just were overmatched tonight at the same time. And the Timberwolves turned it over a bunch and kind of kept the Warriors in it in that vein. And the Warriors were willing to continue to compete throughout the course of the 48-minute game. I do think they get some credit, a lot of credit, honestly, for that. You look at Brandon Podziemski, where has he been? Well, tonight he finally found it in terms of the ability to hit some three-point shots and score the basketball. 11-19 for Podziemski. Jonathan Kuminga did basically what he's done since Steph Curry's been out. He put the ball in the basket, and the Warriors needed somebody to put the ball in the basket, and he did that again in a big-time way. Finished with 26 points, 32 minutes. It wasn't always pretty. He didn't do a heck of a lot more than score, but the Warriors needed him to score. So we can talk about a couple of plays where maybe there was a lack of hustle on a rebound or some poor shot selection, all of those different things. But the bottom line is they needed him to look to score first and foremost. So I'm not really going to be crushing Jonathan Kuminga for some of those other things that have been problematic throughout the course of his Warriors tenure, which, by the way, may be coming to an end tonight, obviously, with the restricted free agency and everything coming up there. So they get more from Pods than they had been getting. They got what they had been getting from Kuminga throughout the course of this series after the Stephen Curry injury. And then, Draymond, I thought, was engaged, but 1 for 6 from 3. I thought Jimmy Butler clearly banged up and just not himself. I think he had more in the tank tonight than he did in game 4, but it also goes back to as we move out from the most recent game that just concluded in game 4, like the Warriors' best chance in this series wound up being game 3. That was the game where Kuminga did his thing and Jimmy Butler was playoff level Jimmy. And you know what? He can't do that 3, 4, 5 games in a series without Steph Curry. And I think anybody would be foolish to think that is something that should be expected. I know on a night like tonight, when a team loses, there's a lot of frustration, and it has a tendency at times to maybe boil over. But I think everybody also at the same time needs to take a deep breath and just understand that no matter how great a player Jimmy Butler is, healthy, not healthy, what level, Jimmy Butler was not going to single-handedly, by being the best player in the series, lead the Warriors to win without Steph Curry against the Minnesota Timberwolves team, as talented as this Timberwolves team is. And I'm also going to say this. All you need to know when you look at the Warriors and who the keepers are and maybe aren't from this year into next year is look at the Timberwolves roster. They play 8. All 8 can play. All 8 serve a purpose. All 8, for the most part, play well together. And all 8 are basically veterans. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't have some young players that are going to be, factoring in part of the equation. Now, Ant obviously is super young, but he's also a superstar. And then you've got other guys in your prime and all of that. But they have 8 players that, the Warriors, they have 8 grown-up players, I think, in this league. And I think as we separate and move out, I mean, the Warriors, how many truly grown-up, fully ready-to-play players do the Warriors have on their roster? 3? I mean, seriously, it's probably Steph, and it's Jimmy Butler, and it's Draymond Green, and look, again, that's not to come down the road of Brandon Pajemski or Moses Meteor. It's more to make the point as we extend a little bit out to the offseason. Look at the difference in the two teams. And I know people are frustrated, and it's, the Wolves are this or aren't that. And look, I'm not even saying the Wolves are this a title, caliber team necessarily. They're a flawed team in their own right for as good as they are. But again, separate the anger and the frustration of fandom for a second and just take a look at, and I'm going to read them off to you. Anthony Edwards is a young, budding superstar. Mike Conley has been in the league for almost 2 decades and played at a high level and knows how to run a team and can defend and can shoot the ball. Not always perfect, but he's a grown-up NBA player. Rudy Gobert, I know, is hated by Warrior fans. Again, flawed in certain ways. He's a grown-up player. Say what you want about Julius Randle. Julius Randle, basically with Ant, won Minnesota this series. He cooked the Warriors all series long. Again, not always a perfect player, but a damn freaking talented player. And, Jaden McDaniels. The Warriors would kill to have Jaden McDaniels. The Warriors, you think the Warriors, if the Warriors could turn Jonathan Kuminga into Jaden McDaniels, like Jaden McDaniels is 10 times the freaking player Jonathan Kuminga is. He is a grown-up ass player in this league who can hit the 3 ball and can defend at a high level and against certain matchups be able to attack and be able to score. That is, he is a grown-up NBA young player who, by the way, got paid in the hundreds. We talk about certain players on this Warriors roster and who's worth 30, 25, 30, 35, $130 million. Jaden McDaniels got a nice contract extension going back. I think it was either last year or 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago maybe. But he got a nice extension. Why? Because he does the little things. He can knock down an open 3. He can defend. Jaden McDaniels is a player. DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, and even Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those are all, we know DiVincenzo obviously from his time with the Warriors. Naz Reid's always crushed the Warriors, actually maybe less so in this series than he has at other points. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is, again, another one of these wing defender types that you really need to be able to combat against the rest of the league and all of the heavy duty scoring defending types that there are. So again, long-winded way to start the show. I am going to let Greg and Kyle jump in here, but I did want to set the table just on that note in terms of the different phases kind of the show. And we'll get to a ton of comments, Kyle's clicks. We want to take everybody here, but those are kind of the initial thoughts on tonight for me, thoughts on the series, and also thoughts about how we begin the conversation as it relates to transitioning from this year into the offseason. So with that, we welcome in Greg Silver and Kyle Haar. Greg, we'll start with you here, man. Just take it wherever the heck you want to go here as we're on YouTube for about another 20 minutes.
Yeah, first of all, this is our second Dubs OT season-ending show that we've done together. Of course, last year it was in April and SAC, so this season has felt really, really long. And maybe this isn't the show to do the full story of different chapters of the season, but look, Kyle Haar wasn't a Dubs OT staple by the time this season started, and that's all you need to know about how long this has felt for everyone. I mean, we had the 12-3 start chapter, the DeAnthony Melton injury, then the 3-12 to get back to even. Then it was the trade deadline. And look, you guys all know the deal. I mean, this is a lot of our regular chat, so I don't need to go into detail about that. The bottom line is, and the reason I bring it up from the very start, is that all in all, this is not a terrible end to the Warriors season result-wise. It is absolutely deflating that it had to end this way. And maybe people aren't in the mood for this kind of sentiment tonight, but I do think you can at least look into next season with a little bit of optimism. They are not a championship contending team as constructed. They are so incredibly flawed and overmatched without Steph Curry. That was very apparent, but I don't think that you just look at this last week and say that the 2 months of basketball that they played after Jimmy Butler came over and what Brandon Pajemski and Moses Moody gave you in the regular season, my point is that all doesn't count for nothing still. Now, there's a lot you got to adjust in the offseason. They still committed to a short-term vision. I think that short-term vision can largely be successful when you give it a full season and a full offseason, but it can't just be this team and this roster, and that's why this is going to be a very crucial offseason here.
It is. And look, they have chosen a direction. So there's no more, Mike Dunleavy said it at the trade deadline when they brought in Jimmy Butler. They've chosen a direction. So now you look at, and I think it is going to be a little bit trickier for the Warriors. I think you need to take a little bit of a step back from this series. And look, Brandon Pajemski before tonight was awful in this series. Hat tip to Moses Moody for the fourth quarter and the energy that he brought that group at the top of the fourth quarter when it looked like this was going to turn into a 30-point blowout kind of a game. Give them all the credit in the world for continuing to fight. Moses Moody was unplayable until basically the Warriors were down 20 in the fourth quarter in an elimination game, and Steve Kerr said, bleep it. I'm going to throw him out there. And again, to his credit tonight, he played well. What I'm getting at here, though, guys, is the simple fact that they've chosen a direction, and you have to evaluate now among the young players who's a keeper and who's not, and what do you need to go get, and how do you go about acquiring those players. But I also think one thing that we do have to do, and I'm going to say this again, you got to be careful putting too much on this series, as bad as Pajemski was. And yes, it started before this series even. Moody, the same thing before Steph was out. But, and this is a question we could get into in the chat, how much do you put on the fact that these guys were being held up by the fact that Steph Curry was playing with them and it was making their games look better, versus the fact that now, they didn't have those guys and then it just completely careened for 3-4 games and that's on the one hand, I'm apt to say, hey, you got to take a deep breath and maybe not as dramatically, like you ain't beating anybody without Steph Curry. That's just the real. But for it to turn into Moody stinks, Pod stinks. Like, to me, you can't do that coming off of this series without Steph any more than you can do the opposite, which is, Kuminga's awesome because he scored a bunch of points. That's like you can't. It has to tie together with the actual picture of the team that you want to have. And I think the one thing if you're the Warriors is it's built around Steph, clearly. It's built around Jimmy, clearly. It's built around Draymond Green, clearly. Unless you can acquire a Giannis, then we got to have different conversations about who maybe needs to go in terms of that. I don't think we're going to get to that tonight, although maybe we do, because it's going to end up being kind of a free-for-all, I feel like, for the next 2+ hours. But Kyle, I want to get your general thoughts, but I also want to bring it back to this notion of, how things end matters. And I think the losing in this series and the lack of really having a true opportunity to win this series once Steph Curry went down in game 1, that can lead to frustration. The losing, the poor play by individuals can lead to a fraying of some of the chemistry. Certain players start looking at other players like, oh, you think your shit doesn't stink, and now you stink. And like how things end in sports matters. And we'll see in the coming days if there was any little bit of a fracture within what seemed really to be a pretty well-oiled team in terms of chemistry. I think Kuminga was kind of in his own island. I think we've talked about that on this show. He kind of reemerged because the Warriors needed him to from a scoring standpoint. But did some of the poor play by some of the others turn into a scenario where maybe they are viewed differently by certain teammates, mainly the veteran guys, as it starts to relate to who the keepers are going to be and how to improve the roster moving forward. So I think that's something we also have to keep in mind. But Kyle, let's get your general thoughts on just kind of where things stand overall.
Yeah, I think if you told me in January or before the trade deadline that the Warriors would finish their season losing in the second round of the playoffs, I would be like, whoa, yeah, I'd take that from where things stood. And they were a game below 500 when they acquired Jimmy Butler. So I think, yes, it does suck that they lost this series and the Steph Curry injury. But I think all in all, it's still an evaluation year. You see how far this team can take you and you improve from there. So I think at the minimum, even though, yes, this does suck, at the minimum, you see which players are playable, which players are risers in the playoffs. And yeah, there's a little asterisk next to the players who performed well in this series because Steph Curry got injured and the whole offense changed from a ball movement, fast-paced offense to a isolated offense. Try to beat your man one-on-one off the dribble. And they really only have two guys, Kuminga and Butler, that could do that. So I think, yeah, it is unfair to judge Pods and Moody based off of that. But I think, yeah, at the very minimum, you saw what you had and you go and improve your squad from there.
All right, let's get to the chat. Let's dive right into it. We'll kind of get some things out in the wash here, and we'll go around the horn. We're gonna be on YouTube all night, but we are gonna hop over at the top of the hour to KNBR, and we'll get to the phone lines and all of those things as well as the chat. So I want to get a bunch of chats in here in the next 10, 12 minutes or so before we take that time out. Again, it'll be a quick little 4 or 5 minute break just so we can switch things over to be able to hop on the radio side. And we'll see how late things go tonight. We may, Greg's not going to be with us all the way up until midnight, but we may keep things going all the way up until midnight tonight on KNBR if the people do want to talk here. Tony Smith, young guys should come off the bench if you keep them. I think that's an interesting thing. I mean, I've said this the other night. Part of the problem for the Warriors in this series was the fact that Brandon Podziemski, as bad as he was, had to play. The Warriors had no other option, no veteran option of a combo guard type ball handler playmaker that when Brandon Podziemski really was playing poorly, you could just say, all right, I'm going to cut Brandon Podziemski's minutes if I'm Steve Kerr from 35 to 40 down to 25 or down to 20. There was just nobody. And so I think, and again, I'm not going to necessarily go in order of importance here because I think shooting is the number one thing in terms of order of importance. This team has to find some kind of a combo guard that even with Steph, and look, I think we saw enough of Podziemski starting next to Steph in the backcourt to where I think he can be a starter in the regular season with Steph. Now in the playoffs, his game took a turn, and that's going to be something you got to file away. It's always the debate between 82-game player and 16-game player in terms of guys that can help you get to that 16 that you need to get to and win an NBA championship. But they have to find, a combo guard that can play some of those minutes. You look at projecting, Steph, Podziemski, they don't have that combo guard. They have Buddy Hield, who can be kind of a backup shooter and play, but they don't have that fourth guard on the roster that they really need. And again, think DeAnthony Melton when he was on the team. Obviously, he had the knee injury in November. That type, his name's come up a lot. Whoever it is, they need somebody that can create for others and create for himself. And I think they need shooting across the board. So if the guy has a good 3-point shot, then all the better. But it's not so much Podziemski has to go. It's Podziemski needs some help. And you have to take it off of needing Podziemski to be this star player to be able to win a series.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting to with the whole, even though playoffs are higher stakes and it matters more in this case with how the Warriors season ended, because how things end does matter. The last 2 months of the regular season aren't invalidated by it. And Brandon Podziemski, I think, is a great example. He really struggled this playoffs. He had 2 good scoring games, game 4 against the Rockets and tonight. And yeah, but to your point, he should be on the team next year, and he has proven to be a winning player. I also think that being the starting 2 guard and primary ball handler outside of Steph Curry is a role that is proven to be a little bit too big for him as of right now. It doesn't mean he can't get better. Doesn't mean he shouldn't be on the team moving forward. That's a prime example of someone that we got to be a little bit realistic. Same's going to go for Jimmy Butler, by the way, because everyone's been all over Jimmy Butler and playoff Jimmy didn't show up. Look, Jimmy Butler is not a player that can will a team to the finals as the number 1 option, especially in the Western Conference, by the way. Like the East, I'm not trying to disrespect what Jimmy did twice in the East, but the Western Conference is a different animal right now. And by the way, Cooper Flagg's going to be in the West come next year as well. For him, this whole notion that he only did it against bad teams in the regular season. Okay, first of all the Warrior fans that are down on Jimmy, you guys were the most negative bunch of all time at 25 and 26 when they still had a little bit of a chance, but kind of a ambiguity and lack of direction. Jimmy Butler in the game they lost against the Clippers coming down to the wire was fantastic in the regular season. In the play-in game against the Memphis Grizzlies, Jimmy Butler was fantastic. Everything thereafter the injury certainly was a little bit inconsistent. I'm not saying that's an excuse fully for why he really faded in the playoffs, but you also can't sit here and say it didn't impact his game whatsoever.
No, I think it definitely impacted his game. And look, this ain't on Jimmy Butler. Again, I'm going to say that if the Warriors don't get Jimmy Butler, they would have been out a month ago. I don't think they would have even finished in the top 10. I know I've said that and people have pushed back. And like, if the Warriors had just kept it rolling, I think they would have ended up behind Phoenix in the Western race. Now, maybe Phoenix would have ended up in the top 10 because it would have been so bad, but I think the Warriors would have ended up behind them, to be perfectly honest. Max Lopez in the chat, if any team left loses Curry, Jokic, SGA, Edwards, Tatum, Brunson, Halliburton, they're cooked. We lost Steph, end of story. And I know the Celtics did win tonight. The Celtics are, and I saw somebody in the chat said this, the Celtics are the one team because of their talent and depth, that could win some playoff games. I don't think they can win necessarily this series against the Knicks in the final 2 games, and I certainly don't think they can win a championship without Jason Tatum. But if anybody could win another game or 3 games in a playoff, like that would have been, they would be the team. But again, that team is so dramatically more talented with grown-up NBA players, grown-up NBA veterans in their prime in their young prime and the Al Horfords of the world on top of all of it. Like, they've got all of those guys. They've got Drew Holidays, but they've also got Derek Whites. They've got Al Horford, but they've also got Porzingis. I mean, that is a terrifically built team. And, oh, by the way, they've got 2 young stars and still have one in Jaylen Brown, even with Jason Tatum on the shelf for the foreseeable future. It sucks if you're a Warrior fan, but it is reality. This series ended in game 1 when Steph Curry got hurt. Now, the Warriors had a path, and we talked about it. It was try to win really one of the games at Chase and then get it to game 6, and maybe Steph Curry can come back and they can win the series. Well, they had a shot in game 3, and they came up short. And that proved to be their best shot. These other games, obviously, Minnesota, just the better team, and it all adds up to there. So good comment from Max Lopez. Let's continue on here. Let's move a little quicker. That's a note for me, not for Kyle, because I tend to pause and do a soliloquy on every comment. But Tony Smith, Butler was great. He got injured, subsequently ill. He just did not have it as a result. Again, the 23-8, I think, speaks for itself. The first-round playoff win, I think, speaks for itself. But I will also say this, guys, the Warriors are going to have to, and we talked about the first, needing that combo guard. The Warriors played their balls off from the time of the Jimmy Butler trade until the end of the regular season and through the play-in and through the first round of the playoffs, just to get to the point where they could play in this series against the Timberwolves that concluded tonight. Next year, you got to build a team that ain't going to go that doesn't have to go that hard, work that hard, because you have 35-year-old Jimmy and 37 going to be 38-year-old Steph and Draymond. Like, you can't, you got to build this team to where there's some margin for error next year. I know there were a lot of people that said, hey, how many games would this team have won? With Jimmy, the team that they had the final 31 the whole year, and people say, God, this might have been a 60-win team. They were not going to be a 60-win. Like they were going to probably be a low 50s win team, I would imagine. But the thing they're going to have to prepare for next year is they have an older team. And just because you have an older team and you're going to have to give players nights off, and maybe some guys aren't going to play back-to-backs, there's going to be injuries, all those different things that come into the equation. You got to build your team to be able to still win enough games to where you can try to get to the top 6 or get to the top 4. I think getting to the top 4 needs to be the goal for the Warriors, not just getting to the top 6. I think getting to the top 6 probably proves to be a little bit too difficult in terms of the path that you're going to have to go through. Although don't tell the Timberwolves that. The Timberwolves were 6th and passed the Warriors on the final day of the year, and they're going to the conference finals and are doing it for a second straight year, basically out of the lower seed position in the West. So Tony, I agree with that. Next chat up here, baby brother. This was Pod's first playoff experience. People were on him like he was a vet. I agree with that. I think people, again, when it gets ugly with the Warrior fan base, it goes quick, and I do think that's a fair point to bring up, Greg. I mean, this was he was bad for a lot of this, really almost the entirety of this series and the end of the last series. He also helped them win a game that might have been the pivot point in the Rocket series. But I do think young players going through it for the first time do tend to get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And now that I've done a season-ending show before of Dubs OT edition, I fully understand what you mean when it gets ugly, because that was probably the ugliest night of last season, and it gets a little ugly out there. Here's the thing with Podziemski. He was totally brutal in the playoffs. I'm not saying he wasn't. He was absolutely brutal outside of the Game 4 of the Rocket series, and tonight he put up the stats and didn't lead to a win. So if we're going to talk about Kuminga, kind of filling up some empty stats sometimes, you got to be fair and say that Podziemski sort of did it too. All that being said, it was a first-time experience for him, and I don't think he's a bad player, but in this particular playoffs, when he wasn't finding his shot, it was a real problem, because in the past, when you've had Steph and you had a healthier Jimmy, Podziemski was able to contribute to winning ways even when he wasn't hitting the shot. there was a lot, and the role he was supposed to have, I mean, what was on his plate for this series was clearly too much for him, and there really weren't any other better options unless you seriously wanted to look me in the eye and say, play Pat Spencer for 28 minutes.
Yeah, there's no way. Sorry, I was finding my headset here for when we switch over to the radio side of things. Different equipment, different headsets. The cleanup crews are here, which brings back some memories of some of the shows we did from Houston toward the end. But the Warriors lose 121 to 110, and we're talking about it here. Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Let's continue 2 more, and we're going to take a timeout. Uncle Chef 30. This team is not done winning championships. They're not done making. They are done making. Wait a minute. This team is not done winning championships. They are done making the playoffs. West is going to be even harder next year. Teams are younger, more athletic than the Warriors. Well, you got to make the playoffs. You got to be done winning championships if you're done making the playoffs.
Maybe they can be 9 or 10, not be in that top 8, get in, and then win a championship. And I think the math might work out there because the playoffs isn't technically the play-in. Yeah,
again, and I think the statement is they're not done winning championships. They're done. I think that's Uncle Chef's point. They're done. Like they're not even going to be a playoff team. But again, that's what the Warriors are going to have to cobble together. It's the ability to be good enough in the regular season while also keeping everybody fresh enough to be able to make the run in the playoffs. But you can't be so bad in doing that you don't make the playoffs or that you're in the play-in tournament again and all of that. So, all right, one more, and then we're going to switch over to KNBR. We'll take a quick timeout. Alpha, Warriors probably win it all this season if not for Curry's injury. I don't know. The Tatum injury could have swung. I don't know. We should probably save that debate for when we have a little bit more time before the top of the hour as we try to make the switch. I think they come up short regardless. I think they were wearing down. I think they were going to – look, this series, I know people like to act like because the Timberwolves didn't really play great until the middle of Game 4, really, and at the end of Game 3, in the middle of Game 4, people act like, if Steph had played, the Warriors would have won in 5. Like, no, this series was still going 6-7. Like, even if Steph and the Warriors could have lost this series and worn down maybe in another way had Steph been playing throughout the course of it. I do think if Steph stays healthy, the Warriors would have had a great shot to win this series. I think it was trending in that direction. But we can't do the whole thing where I think this roster was too flawed, and I think they were getting too worn down to where they weren't going to win the title.
No, I agree with that fully. And Kyle, I'll let you go in a sec, but I was just going to say that I was getting a lot of people coming at me online tonight for saying this was going to be a hard-fought series if Steph played. I don't want to live in the world of hypotheticals. He got hurt, is what it is. Happens in the playoffs. The Warriors have seen both the side where they get hurt by injuries. They've seen the side where they benefit from the injuries. You play the games with the people who are on the floor. Timberwolves wouldn't have wanted Steph to be out. It's just what happened. This was going to be a hard series no matter what. Warriors might have won it in the end, but let's not act like this thing was going to be a sweep.
Kyle, quick thoughts for you?
Yeah, I also think maybe part of the reasoning from Alpha is, yes, you still have to go through either Oklahoma City or the Denver Nuggets, but I think the team that is going to come out of the East is probably not the team that you thought was going to come out of the East. And so I think the path there was easier.
And the East next year, I think, has the potential. Like who the hell knows next year? But the West also is even deeper. I think we can definitely say that with the events of the last couple of days and the draft and all that. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. We're going to come back on YouTube. We're going to about a 3-4 minute timeout. We're going to come back on YouTube. We're going to join on KNBR 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. It's Dubs OT with JD as the Warriors lose 121 to 110. The season is over, and we're talking about it here on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation. After the final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Ball control for Minnesota. They start the field here at Target Center. They're waving goodbye to the Golden State Warriors. Minnesota is formidable.
Yep, and Minnesota goes on to win it 121-110. We welcome you in here to Dubs OT with JD, Greg Silver, Kyle Haar, and our San Francisco studios. 808 KNBR is the number, 415-808-5627. And for those watching on YouTube, we say hello to you again as we have been on for the last half hour or so from Minneapolis as the Warriors see their season come to an end in 5 games at the hands of the Timberwolves. 121-110 is the final. So 808 KNBR, if you want to jump in and join the conversation on the phone lines. And again, as we start here, we'll kind of reset a little bit. Just the simple fact that I know on a night like tonight, things can go in a number of different directions from a fan standpoint. You have the Warriors who lost Steph Curry at the beginning of this series, and from a fan standpoint, that sucks. You wonder what could have been. The Warriors did win game 1 of the series with Steph playing only 13 minutes and looked like they were going to be formidable in this series against the Timberwolves and have a shot. He goes down. It ends up being a pretty ugly series for some of the Warriors' young players. Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, Quentin Post among them. And then on the other hand, you get a guy like Jonathan Kuminga who gets an opportunity to play and play maybe in a way that better suits his game without Steph Curry. And he's able to come up with some pretty big scoring outputs that in some ways help the Warriors, especially in the 2 games in San Francisco, helped them stay in the game and have opportunities to win those games in the second half before the Timberwolves took control in game 3 down the stretch and game 4, obviously, with the big third quarter. How things end matters, though, and we really go in 3 different directions here, Greg, as you hear this for the second time. It's the game tonight in which I thought the Warriors competed throughout most of it. The Timberwolves, though, just too much without Steph Curry. Talented, they were hitting shots tonight. This was not other than the turnovers for Minnesota. This was not an unfocused, gonna let the Warriors hang around, get down, and have to re-win the game as the game went on. Kind of an effort. This was a pretty on point effort for a team that is moving on to face either Oklahoma City or Denver in the Western Conference Finals. I thought the Warriors competed, but were overmatched. There were times if they could have hit a couple of shots, they could have hung in the game. Again, that's kind of the tonight portion of it. There's this series portion of it, which I think is Steph Curry. And then there's the where do the Warriors go from here portion of it as well to get into as far as who are the keepers for next season, because this is a pivotal offseason for Golden State now as they look to move forward and try to get a level better, a level closer to being able to be a championship contending team. So just kind of for the radio folks, resetting things, the folks on YouTube, we'll get back to your comments in just a moment, but setting the table if you want to react to any of that here tonight on the phone lines at 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open as well. Greg Silver, what's going on tonight, my man?
Hey, good to be with you. Part 2. Good to be with Kyle now in his normal, natural habitat of the studio. People were asking if he was in an emergency room just by being down the hall. So no, Kyle is back in the chair you're used to seeing him in. But yeah, I mean, this was a tough one for the Warriors, and unfortunately, kind of expected when you just look at the reality of how the series went. I mean, it's really tough to win playoff games, let alone a series, when your best player is out. And I can't even blame anybody in the Bay Area for being a little bit delusional about it, because we all saw Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or Klay Thompson miss playoff games, and then they had enough guys to be able to cover that up because they were so dominant in this dynastic run. And now when your best player is now at the age of 37, the rest of the roster is a little bit weaker. Some are older, some are much younger and more inexperienced. It's just a tough reality for it to end this way. And so, yeah, the offseason discussion is going to be a big part of it. Who's to say if the Timberwolves would have gotten it done with or without Steph Curry? But it's certainly, if I can use an analogy on the way that the Warriors season ended, it was just a little bit of a poke in the balloon and the air slowly getting sucked out. There was a little bit of hope there that game 3 could have been the one to get, but ultimately the Timberwolves had the 2 best players in this series, and Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle were head and shoulders above everybody else on the floor. The Timberwolves deserve their credit for the way that they ramped it up at the end of game 3, the middle of game 4, and not messing around with it tonight the way they shot it. I mean, they're going to the conference finals. We'll see if they can get the better of OKC and Denver, but it's a tough way for the Warriors to end it in a very, very slow burn.
I know this was a discussion I saw on social media on the TNT side of things, and we were talking about it a little bit before we broke off of YouTube to come over here on the Sports Leader, and it how would the Warriors have fared in the series had Stephen Curry been able to be healthy and play for the entire series? It wouldn't have ended tonight. I'm comfortable in saying that, given the way that he played in game 1 and the way he was playing throughout the course of the playoffs and helping to lead this Warriors team. Kind of a futile conversation though, because he did get hurt. It is unfortunate that he got hurt. It really, the Warriors had some leaks in the dam, and when Steph went out, I think over the course of the series, the leaks just turned into gaping holes, and the whole thing kind of exploded on him at different points to where, it was just too much for them to be able to overcome. I don't think they would have been a lock though, Greg. I really don't. I think it was trending toward they were going to be in a great position to be able to win this series in 6 or potentially 7 games. But the one thing I'm comfortable enough in saying is I absolutely don't think it would have ended tonight.
No, I don't think it would have. And if it was going to end tonight, it would have been Steph Curry having a wild series and the Warriors possibly winning in 5, which, to be clear, I don't think that would have happened either. This was probably going 6 or 7 one way or another. But again, we're not here to live in the world of hypotheticals. It happened. It's unfortunate. And regardless of whether Steph got injured or not, regardless of whether the Warriors won this series or not, even if the Warriors got all the way to the finals, hell, this offseason was still going to be about retooling. So in a lot of ways, we're here to have a lot of the same conversation topics that we would have been having anyway. It just probably wouldn't have happened on May 14th.
808 KNBR 415-808-5627. The number. Let's get to the phone lines, and it's Ramon in San Jose who's going to be up first here in the 10 o'clock hour. What's going on tonight, Ramon?
Hey, I'm driving close to my house towards Willow Glen right now, but I don't think they should have paid Jimmy. I mean, he left Miami all happy. He found a spot. He didn't want to be there, and he didn't deliver. Just with Buddy Hield as well. He's supposed to be the Klay Thompson when Jimmy or Curry's in there and make those threes. And
all right, Ramon, thanks. Ramon cutting out. Is Ramon cutting out there? Is that the line? Ramon was cutting out. I want to make sure Ramon Kyle was cutting out, or was he not? Was he clean? And that was kind of the line. Okay. Anyway, look, Buddy Hield's not Klay Thompson. He was brought in to play, I think, the role that the Warriors wanted Klay Thompson to play, and he didn't want to play, which is why
post-injury Klay Thompson to play.
They wanted Klay Thompson to play that role, and so Klay Thompson chose to leave. And as far as Jimmy Butler, again, are there really Warrior fans out there that think Jimmy Butler was supposed to carry this team to wins without Steph Curry in playoff series against teams that a year ago made the Western Conference Finals? Like, are there really, truly? I think there are, because I've seen it all over social media tonight. And again, I don't want to come too hard down these people's roads, but like really? Like, he's 35 years old. He's banged up. Like the Warriors did not get Jimmy Butler to single-handedly, without Steph Curry, win playoff series. They got him so they would avoid being the 12 seed and miss the freaking playoffs completely, okay, which is where they were headed on February 5th. This thing was going to end a month ago, and it was going to end ugly a month ago. It was going to end with this team probably having 37 wins, and with a lot of games like the last 4 where Jonathan Kuminga's scoring 20 points and you're not sniffing a win at the end of the night. But he got his numbers and he got his shots and he got his points and, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. Like, that's exactly where this thing was headed before Jimmy Butler was in the equation. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We'll get to another call here. Put that comment back up on the screen. I like reading the comments here. Robert Brown, they should have sniffed this series without
They wouldn't
Butler.
have. They wouldn't have sniffed
they
the
wouldn't
series
have
without
sniffed
Jimmy.
the series. Yeah, they wouldn't have sniffed this series without Jimmy. Yeah, 100%. All right, let's continue on here. Fozzie in the East Bay. What's going on, Fozzie?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, JD. Look, it is what it is, man. A few of those championships runs that we went on, we got a little lucky on the way there. And you know what? If that's what it turns out to be for these guys, then hats off to them. But for us, man, you know what? For the guys that we did have, I think they played their hearts out. I mean, they kept it close a few games. And even tonight, man, a few of the guys balled out. I know Pods. I know everybody's going to come down his road. But, he is what he is as a player. And to me, he played great. And I know everybody else is going to be looking towards the future and talking about Jimmy and all that and what trades and what other guys that we can't get. But as far as I'm concerned, it was a great year. And we know Steph is going to get back and be the Steph that he is going to be next year. And he's probably going to be a little year older. But, man, I was just thankful and grateful that I got to see us get into the playoffs, man. That was all I was worried about, was just getting into the dance. And if it would have worked out for us, we probably would have had a chance. But you know what? It wasn't in the cards for us. But as for Dubs OT, great year. Great year. You guys brought in Kyle. Great addition to the squad. Greg, I know he was with us from day one, but shout out to the chat too. JD, I'm opening a brand new beer up for you, man. Great year. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Appreciate it, Fozzie. Great stuff. 808 KNBR. Yeah, great year for Dubs OT, without a doubt. The growth has been tremendous. And yeah, we are so grateful to have been able to share. We didn't know where this thing was going to go. It got off to the 12-3 start, and it looked like, whoa, is this team going to be sneaky good? If you remember, I mean, they had a great training camp over in Hawaii. The vibes were high. They got off to that start, and as great as they were in the first 15, they were that bad in the next 15 to end up exactly 15-15 through 30 games of the season. And then there was the stretch in the lead up to the deadline where it was just, I mean, mediocrity galore, and it just looked like this team was heading, down the path of playing at best and maybe even worse than that, as we've been, talking about here at different points before they make the trade. They were waiting for the big move that they felt they had to make, and they ultimately made the move. And again, I'm just going to say it. The Jimmy Butler trade saved the Warriors season. Like they made it to the second round of the playoffs and got beat by a really freaking good Minnesota Timberwolves team. Like that is a team that could go to the NBA Finals. That is a team that could beat OKC or Denver. Hell, they own Denver. Minnesota's praying Denver ends up coming back and winning these last 2 games. They haven't lost to Denver, and they've won 6 straight against Denver, I think, going back to the games in the playoffs last year, and they swept them in their season series head to head this year. So they aren't afraid of it's a very, 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 very good team. But Podziemski ended up playing better tonight, but his poor play is a story of this series. Moody's poor play is a story of this series. I think a story of the playoffs. And we were talking about it a little bit on the YouTube side to bring the folks back on the radio into this conversation as well. I think as you look at formulating a roster for this team next year, independent of whether Steph Curry is healthy or not, how many games he's going to play, all of that, you can't not have any other options when Brandon Podziemski's struggling at the level that Brandon Podziemski is struggling to go to. You have to have a combo guard on this roster. You have to have a combo guard on this roster that you can go to if Podziemski struggles as much as he did at different points of a season. You need a veteran. You need a guy that can create for himself, can create for others, can knock down some shots. Like, you just have to have another option. So that's, again, in no particular order, one thing I think they definitely need. This team at every spot needs more shooting, at every spot, and whether it's that combo guard, they have Buddy Hield who can play the backup two guard kind of a role. They need more wing shooting. And when you look at Moses Moody's struggles and inconsistencies in the playoffs to the point where he became unplayable, you have to go get a wing shooter. You non-negotiable. You need at least one. You probably need a veteran one that's going to play a little bit of time, and you need to find somebody that's a little closer to their prime that can be I think probably be a starter. I mean, Moses Moody was starting, so I think you almost have to look at, can you go find a starter that can shoot and complement Jimmy? Not a 7-footer, but a 6'7" guy, 6'8" guy that can shoot and complement Jimmy and complement Draymond Green. And then on top of that, you need the big as well. But I think all of those things are to be evaluated. A microcosm of all of it. We see it tonight, and then you extrapolate it out to the series, and you start to look toward the off season there. 808 KNBR. We're going to get to more phone calls. Greg, jump in here real quick, and then we'll get to some more calls and more in the chat here as the people want to talk on Dubs OT.
Yeah, first of all, I cannot believe we are sitting here having a Jimmy Butler conversation, and if it was regrettable. Just let's take a step back. They were 25-26. They had a surge to the end of the season, and you could say the schedule was a little bit weaker. Guess what? They lost a lot of bad games to bad teams before Jimmy Butler showed up. We're talking about at Toronto, the Utah game, the night the trade all went down. Then they climb all the way up into the top 6. They have a tough loss. They get to the 7. Great win at home against the Grizzlies. You have a hard-fought series against a 2 seed that was inexperienced, but they won 52 freaking games, and you win a game 7 on the road. I mean, it stinks that it had to be so hard, and Steph Curry ends up getting worn down, pulling the hamstring. You lose to a team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year and is being led the charge by a 23-year-old superstar in Anthony Edwards. It's not ideal. It doesn't mean you can't have conversations about the Moody of it, the Podziemski of it, the Jonathan Kuminga of it, and all the offseason. But, let's just all be real for a second. Come on. The Jimmy Butler trade saved the freaking season, and it doesn't change the fact that next year they have a real shot to be a competitive team in the Western Conference.
All right, let's continue on the phone lines. We got a lot of people that want to talk, so let's keep it moving with Danny in Vancouver next here on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader. What's up tonight, Danny?
Hey, JD. Nice to talk to you guys. I know that it's a busy night, so I won't be long. It was, a tough game tonight. I really appreciate how they played hard, and, it wasn't like a complete blowout at the end. I was happy for Pods that he kind of redeemed himself somewhat. I'm glad Jonathan Kuminga had such a good series for selfish reasons, because I think it really showcases him. So, teams have got to be interested now, and hopefully that'll increase his trade value. I'm assuming he won't be with the team next year, but we'll see. And I just wanted to say a very sincere thank you to you guys, to you and you, JD, Greg, and Kyle. It was a real pleasure. It was really exciting the last few months. Obviously, the Jimmy Butler really ignited the team. With a little more luck, we could have got into the Western Finals, but it's the way it goes. I mean, injuries always play a factor. It's helped the Warriors and it hurts the Warriors in the past. So I just want to say thanks. It was a great distraction with all the insanity going on, and I'll definitely listen on Saturday, and I can't wait for next year. And I just want to thank you guys so much. Always great comments and interesting callers and interesting comments on the YouTube feed. KNBR, the sports leader. So thanks, guys, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, Danny, thank you so much. And we really appreciate you and all the times you stop by at Harmonic and Thrive City. Danny pops in from Vancouver from time to time, always with a cold one.
I love Danny in Vancouver.
I love Danny in Vancouver.
Danny is the absolute best. Brought his wife, met his wife one of the trips down. It was tremendous. And so, yeah, a couple of things here, and we'll keep it moving. I do think they fought all night. There were 4, 5, 6 different times that it felt like they were going to lose by 30. I mean, really. And every time it felt like it was about to get to that point, the Warriors would make a run to, prevent it. They were just kind of closer than you felt like they should have been the whole night, although you never really felt like they were going to win the game. I think at the same time as well. But that's the one thing I will say about that. And then the other thing is, Jonathan Kuminga did make some money in this series. And that's a good thing for Jonathan Kuminga. Nobody on this show begrudges that at all. We've talked a lot about the stance that he has about the player that he believes he is. And, he got a shot in the playoffs to go out and do what he does best at this stage of his career, which is just look to try to score at a high rate. Other aspects of his game obviously need to improve. There was I thought the most frustrating play of the night was the play where Draymond ended up on Anthony Edwards, and Edwards is driving Draymond to the bucket. Kyle's already, because he knows this one drove me crazy. And Draymond absolutely, with just the sheer force of everything he had, gets Ant to take a wild shot. Draymond falls on his back to the floor. Edwards misses, and Jonathan Kuminga just absolutely stares at the ball in the air that was right there for him to go up and grab and finish off the possession. And he just completely lets Julius Randle waltz right back in to grab it and put it back in. And I think at that point, Kuminga had no rebounds. I think he ended up with 2 rebounds.
No, because he got one early, and Stan Van Gundy actually said it about 3 seconds after I said it out loud to my TV. He went up in the first quarter, ripped one down with that hops and athleticism that I could never touch. And then on the other end, they had not necessarily a fast break, but kind of a quick transition, and Draymond Green hit him with a little tap pass for the wide open dunk. And I was like, look at that.
Yeah, again, there were some bright spots even in the game tonight, but that play was just so indicative. Like, there is just no hustle or want to do anything from Jonathan Kuminga other than look to score. Just nothing. And I feel like when he actually gets put in these opportunities sometimes to go score, he other aspects of his game will improve, but I think I think he also kind of gets a little lackadaisical with I'm the scorer now, so I don't have to do the other stuff. Like, I think that's kind of the mindset. It's like, no, you need to do everything. You're one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete on the floor. You got to do like that. That to me, that play in a nutshell is Jonathan Kuminga. It's just, there is just not a hustle or a care or a want to do anything on the court other than look to score the basketball. It's so frustrating. But he did make some money, and again, that helps the Warriors, I think, in the offseason. The more money he will demand is the less money the Warriors will have to include in a trade to try and get a player that can actually help them with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green in the equation. So it's good for him. And again, I'm going to say it. I think it's, nothing really in this series. And I saw early on in the chat when we were over on YouTube, Kuminga averaged 23.6 points over the last 3 games. Do we really want to let him go? I mean, to me, the answer is yes. If you want to improve this roster, you can't take somebody who is not. And here's the thing, as well as he played and scored in the series against the Timberwolves, Jonathan Kuminga did nothing this season to prove that he can play with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green collectively. So in a lot of ways, even though he scored, he still is a question mark going into next year in any kind of games that truly matter. And I think from that standpoint alone, you can't be waiting around again another year to figure out if he's going to be able to fit in. And now you're going to pay him on top of it. Like you've said it, Greg, the Band-Aid needs to be ripped off. The Band-Aid absolutely has to be ripped off with that. And again, they just have to get a useful player in there that can complement the rest of what they do more effectively and consistently than what Kuminga brings to the table. And I think, again, I whatever, they weren't winning any games without Steph Curry anyway. Like I don't like the whole, he played a bunch of minutes and they lost. And that's kind of what happens when he plays a bunch of minutes. But I just don't think he's done anything to improve his stock as a winning player. I'll put it that way, simply put. And that's for his whole year. I don't think he did in his whole season, ups and downs and injuries and things that aren't fair, Greg. I don't think he did anything this season that upped his value as a winning player for this team to look to continue to build toward a championship next season.
No, and that's important context that you say the whole season, because we can't look at this series and say, well, Kuminga's not a winning basketball player just based on this series, because if we're looking at the reasons the Warriors lost this series, he is so far down that list as to why, when he was not afraid to shoot, they needed offense, and he could, frankly, as you put it early in the show, go ahead and put the ball in the bucket, and they didn't have any capabilities of doing that consistently outside of Game 3 Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry in the 13 minutes that he played in this series. But no, that's fair to say that over the course of the whole season, when he bet on himself, they did not reach an extension. I would not pay him $120 million, especially now when you look at the way the roster's constructed post-Jimmy trade. I don't think it makes sense for the Warriors. I don't think it makes sense for him. I think he can go thrive. He's a talented player. He's got a chance to go and have a nice career on a different team. But the way the Warriors have been committed to playing their basketball, the way they doubled down on the short-term vision after the trade, it doesn't make sense to be dragging Jonathan Kuminga on in a fifth year where you're paying him a whole lot of money when you already got these guys on the books.
And I also think, and Eric, Steve, Gino, we're coming to you next. Otis Bird, the only thing is, could Kuminga be another Poole, flourish elsewhere, even if he's on a lesser team? Again, look, Jordan Poole proved with the Warriors that he had the capability of being a winning player, and then they still, like, Jonathan Kuminga's never done anything close to what Jordan Poole did to help the Warriors win. I know at times, like, those two get lumped together, but like Jordan Poole was actually a winning player on a title team. Like, he proved that. it happened. So I don't think you can worry about. I just don't think you can worry about that at this point. Another Poole. What's Jordan Poole doing? Like what's Jordan Poole doing right now? Like, he's on the Wizards, who actively tank. I don't know. Like, is Poole a good? No, you got to find players that fit. And Jordan Poole would be a better fit than Jonathan Kuminga. But I also don't think the Warriors should fear moving on from Jonathan Kuminga. And I also think, and I'm going to say this too, there is a fracture, and I don't know how great it is, but there is a fracture among those who believe Kuminga can be something moving forward and those that can't. And I think it's down to one or two people in the organization that believe Kuminga can or should be a part of this thing moving forward, to the point where if that gets forced upon everybody else, there's going to be major problems. Because I think you could make the case that, Joe Lacob, to be perfectly honest, I think you could make the case that Joe Lacob, the way that it's been reported about his infatuation with Jonathan Kuminga as a player, has allowed Jonathan Kuminga to basically not be coached. If the owner is basically saying, hey, the coach is wrong, even though the coach still has the autonomy to coach the player how he wants, then the player basically is never going to be fully able to be coached. And so I think there's a little of that dynamic where Steve Kerr had to adjust the way he wanted to coach Jonathan Kuminga at times. I think it was two guys kind of trying to make the best of it because the owner really likes him. And you wanted him to get a fair shake and really felt he could help. But I'm going to say this. It's not Steve Kerr alone. It's Steph. It's Draymond. It's like the veterans know. The veterans know that they need a different player in that slot moving forward. And again, I think Jonathan Kuminga knows that he would prefer to get paid and go elsewhere. Like, he would rather be elsewhere. Like, he would rather do what he did tonight, all year, and what he did in this series all year. And if you lose, you lose. You win 20 games, you win 20 games. Like, that's the way it, that's the way it works. So the break, it's deeper in my mind, the need for this break. Like, to me, it's a relationship that should not be forced to continue for another year. Better for all parties to be able to split up. All right, let's get to the phones. And Danny, by the way, mentioned in Vancouver, our Saturday show, we are going to have our final Just Dubs Saturday morning, 10 to noon, and it'll be more postmortem on the season. We'll do a heavier look into the offseason. I think Greg's going to probably join for a segment if he can, and it'll just be an extension of the conversation from tonight here as the Warriors see their season come to an end. All right, let's get Eric in San Francisco next as we go back to the phones here on Dubs OT. Hey, Eric.
Hey, JD. Yeah, that was a rough one. I mean, the series effectively was over once Steph hurt his hamstring. I mean, we all knew maybe we could have gotten to a game 6 and he miraculously came back. But, we had to feel game 3, and that was, once that was done, they've got a superstar in Ant Edwards, and Randall's turned around his playoff career and just looks like a beast. And it's just a rough way to end the season just because with the injuries of the other teams, if Steph stays healthy, we could have made a real run at the championship, because I think we could have given the Timberwolves all they could have handled if Steph stays healthy. But I think, the big thing that this little 4-game stretch proved is that, the mistakes were made on bad draft picks. When we had those 3 lottery picks, none of the players really turned out to be, basically winning players. Or players that we can really build on into the future. So I think you sign and trade Kuminga for, you've always brought up Cam Johnson, maybe a Cam Johnson type, and you just go completely all in on Curry. You don't sell the future draft picks, because in 3 years, we're going to have to tear it down to the studs and then hope we draft the right players, or we get Mavericks luck of jumping from, 11 or whatever to number 1 pick and Cooper Flag. And, you just go all in for the next 2 years. You keep the draft ammo clean, because you're going to have to do a rebuild, and ride it out with Steph until he retires. And then, you can then just go the OKC model. It's going to be 2 or 3 really lean years.
Yeah.
And if you hit right on your draft picks, then come, 20, 30, 32, you're looking like the Rockets or the Thunder.
Exactly.
Or, and I think that's the move going forward.
Yeah, I don't think they should worry about too far down the line. You obviously don't want to mortgage stuff too far beyond Steph. I totally understand that. I think this team is close enough, though, Eric, now to where they probably don't need to do that. I think the move that was going to allow for that, or that would require that, would have been I think in getting Jimmy Butler, they don't necessarily need to make that move. Now, look, if the Giannis thing becomes a thing, then that's completely different, because he's still a young, a prime type player that would be on the team as a star beyond Steph, as unrealistic as that obviously is. So that would be somebody that you would be giving up many, many future picks if you were going to acquire. But that one scenario aside, I don't think the Warriors are going to have to attach all these draft picks to look to improve the roster. But I do think they can look to do it in the next 2 to 3 years, because I think, especially for next year, they have to look to go as all in as they possibly can, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. If you look at the other teams that could potentially bid for Giannis, unless he's like, I want to come play for Steph, which NBA players do.
It could happen, but it would take that. You're right. It would take that, because if it's just an open market trade, it's Houston, it's the Spurs, it's, maybe a couple other teams get in there and are really willing to mortgage some stuff. But you're right. I mean, the Warriors' ability, Oklahoma City could do it, to be perfectly honest, Eric. Let's say they come up short and all of a sudden are willing to trade 2 or 3 of their young players, and they've got a ton of future picks still. So, no, there are quite a few teams, I think, really at least those 3 that could offer a significant amount more. And I think if Giannis truly is on the market, there will be 2 or 3 more teams that will jump in the fray and try to make it happen if they possibly can. Good stuff, Eric, man. Thank you for the call.
Thanks.
All right, from Eric, let's go to Stevie G in the city next here on Dubs OT. Hey, Stevie.
Thank you for taking my call there, Sugar. I just want to say
we love Robin, Stevie. We love Robin. Robin's the best.
That's cute.
One of our.
That's cute.
Thanks,
That's
man.
cute.
Well, what do you got?
Well, I just want to say thank you for your insight. You have in-depth, accurate knowledge, and I appreciate it. Spot on. And I hope KNBR will keep you guys for a long, long time. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Short and sweet and kind words, and we do too, Stevie G. Right, Greg? We do. Kyle, we no question.
Absolutely. You kidding me? Yeah. Of course.
We love doing this show, and I don't take it lightly when I say best Dubs coverage in the Bay, and we've done it.
Yeah.
You damn right, Boach. We've done it from Hawaii. I mean, you think about it. We've done it from Hawaii to Portland to Utah to LA to Sacramento to Chicago to Miami to Houston to Minneapolis. I mean, and we end in Minneapolis what we began back at Media Day in September, and Media Day with a flight pending to go over to Hawaii. And I'm sure I'm messing up a couple of the other cities that we did some shows from this season, but there were a lot of them, and we had a great time. And yeah, Read the Steve Dubs OT needs to go international. Nothing international, I think, on the horizon for the Warriors as things currently sit. But I have heard that they would like to do the Hawaii thing again. I have heard that. I don't know if you're going to be able to do it consecutive years. It's kind of the Clippers thing, is also my understanding. They kind of, I don't want to say own the rights to it, but they really are all in for a multi-year commitment. And I think there's other teams that probably are going to want to do it. So it may have to wind up being some level of a rotation. But my understanding is basically the Warriors veterans, Steph and Draymond, and hell, Jimmy wasn't even there then, but they're like, yeah, let's do the Hawaii thing again. Like everybody loved the way that worked out for training camp, and it set a positive tone. I mean, they did get off to a 12-3 start with a much lesser team than they had at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just reading through the chat and thinking about Hawaii, and I was thinking about how I was going to pack my bags too. I was like, maybe I'll get a little sunscreen at CVS, before the tariffs kick in, and then sunscreen's just like normal expensive, and then I'll be out on the islands watching Jimmy Butler, Brandon Pajemski, Steph Curry, and Cam Johnson, baby. That's right. Can't do the final show without mentioning a Cam Johnson on the Warriors next year. Note. Book it.
Let's get Gino and Pacheco next here on Dubs OT. What's going on tonight, Gino?
It's not Gino, it's Dino. Like Dino.
Oh, Dino. Oh, what's up, Dino? I know Dino. Come on, man. You're a regular.
Me, man. You guys are my buddies. I like you guys.
It was a typo. It was a typo on the screen.
Yeah,
Dino.
it was. I could tell the call screener he made a mistake. But anyway,
come on, Dave.
Good season, JD. Good season, Greg. You guys kept it real all the time. I loved it. Listening to you, JD. Covering the Warriors. But as I said, I just want to make a point. That's the way sports is. Just like in life. Things were so hunky-dory with Jimmy Butler when he got here, and all the way up until a week and a half ago, basically. Then Curry goes down, and it wasn't just sports, and just like in life, it's not just physical part. Butler made everything, and everybody else, the combination of him and Steph and Draymond and the other, the other regulars, they made everybody else up to the last man in the rotation better mentally. And they were all playing really good ball for a long time. And they even won the first game of the series until they, but anyway, until Steph was no longer, finalized, it was gone. But the mental part of the game was huge. Just like Jordan made Kerr better, and guys like Paxson and the greats make people better. You can't lose a Steph Curry. But anyway, the puzzle just fell to pieces. But what disappointed me most was, I won't name names, but I was listening to a show yesterday, and even a couple of days ago before the game. Yeah, I won't. But and they disappointed me. They were literally talking about Jimmy Butler like he was a bum, and it was unacceptable. Well, this dude actually used a word. The way he played was unacceptable to me, and this and that. It was so weak, man. And it was just unbelievable. They were doomed as soon as they lost Steph. It was not a pretty sight. It wasn't going to be a pretty sight no matter what. And it turned out that way. It was just obvious. It's just plainly obvious. And that's all I want to say. Great season, Jimmy. Thank God that was a great trade for Jimmy Butler. Good job by the GM and whoever else was involved in that trade. The owners, obviously. But and they made a great season out of this. They did have a chance, like that guy from Vancouver said. They actually did have a chance to make a run at this thing, and until Steph went down, then it was over. And just like Boston, I can't imagine how Boston feels with Jason Tatum.
Thanks for the call. Thanks, Dino. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Okay. Great call from Dino, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. I think Dino was coming out clear. I think it might have been my headset. For some of the talk back tonight, I'm getting a little bit of a garbled cutting out. So I think it's mostly okay over the air, but it's been the case with some of Greg. When we've been conversing and with some of the callers tonight, I've been hearing bits and pieces of what they've had to say. So I apologize for jumping in and kind of cutting off Dino there. But I knew he was about to wrap up his call at some point, and we wanted to continue to move forward here. So let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Greg, are you cool to hang for about another 10? Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll let you go top of the hour and continue on there. I just want to get some final thoughts from you, but I know we're up against it a little bit in terms of now that we're back on KNBR, we got to make sure we take breaks and stuff like that, which I sometimes don't like to do. So I don't want to get Kyle in trouble.
You can never get rid of me.
We'll come back. And we'll have about 10 more minutes with Greg. We got a couple of open lines, 415-808-5627. We're going to get back to the YouTube chat. We got Sounds at Dubs OT coming up as well. And I think we're going to keep this thing going all the way till midnight here on KNBR as the Warriors lose 121-110 to the Timberwolves. Timberwolves are on to the conference finals. The Warriors season is over, and we are talking about it here on the Sports Leader.
live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader, streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Minnesota up 3-1 in this series. Chance to send Golden State home, and McDaniels set up by Anthony Edwards. 10 assists for Edwards. McDaniels, the high flyer on the receiving end.
Yeah, too much Anthony Edwards, too much Julius Randle for the Timberwolves against the Warriors in this series. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD from Minneapolis. Warriors season is over. 121-110, the final in favor of the Timberwolves, who will go on to play the Thunder or the Denver Nuggets. They still have at least one more game to play in that series, with Oklahoma City leading 3-2. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627, the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here. Greg Silver still on hand. We got Kyle Harr in our San Francisco studios, the best YouTube chat in sports, which we're going to get even more deeply into coming up here at the top of the 11 o'clock hour back home, as it is 12:52 currently here in Minneapolis. So we're going to keep things rolling all the way up until midnight. Before, though, we do that, I wanted to give Greg an opportunity to just kind of get some final thoughts. He's obviously got the show with Greg Papa tomorrow, and I didn't want to rush you out of here, but I do know you got to get out of here and try to get some semblance of a decent night's sleep. So before we get to Rob and Duck Sauce, just some final thoughts, anything maybe we haven't gotten into, or just tie it in a bow. Any way you'd like here, man, before we reconvene, and you'll be on with Papa tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that if there's anything I forget in the next minute or so, we have an entire offseason to get to it. No, in all seriousness, I mean, I guess I'll go for one last silver lining. Shout out to Robert, who always wanted one after every loss, and that included even in the 12-3 stint when the losses weren't creeping up and then it started happening. But honestly, the silver lining is just all of you that make the show a good place to be. I mean, look, I'm here and I'm on the air right now, not because I'm contractually obligated to be here right now. This is the best Dubs coverage in the Bay. We've been saying it from the beginning. And also just want to give a big thank you to Kyle for the way he just completely stepped up when everything got shaken up. I mean, I know everyone on the outside will have their opinions about the changes at KNBR, and trust me, internally, it does not sit well either. It is tough to just deal with things on the fly, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've been given, but Kyle also just stepped up so that this show did not miss a beat and did a fantastic job. So he's a way, way better board op. He's like a mature version of me, and it's awesome.
Well,
no, Kyle's great, and yeah, go ahead, Kyle. You're great.
I will say that I did ask Greg probably a million questions throughout this season, so he has also been a great help for me and mentor and tutor along the way as well. So kudos to Greg as well.
Yeah, it really was, I think, as seamless a transition as possibly could have been. Didn't mean we didn't have some growing pains. Denver was another city. I didn't mention Denver. We did a show in Denver. We watched the Warriors blow a lead there in Denver. I'm going to make sure I get them all in here between now and midnight. 3 trips to Houston, 2 trips to Minneapolis, Portland, Utah, LA. Anyway, nobody really cares. Sacramento a couple of times, but no, Greg, really appreciate you, man. And I said when you got elevated back in November, and I meant it. I mean, this show, you were welcome to join this show anytime. And I know we figured out some, nights that worked out better with your schedule, some nights that worked out better in terms of maybe some of the nights we were going to be on YouTube only. But you, as you mentioned, never a requirement. And so, but yet you quite often were here. And so I really appreciate you for that. And you always add to the conversation on the air. You add to the conversation off the air. You add to the inner workings because you know everything that Kyle does as well. And so, man, I just really appreciate it. So thank you for another great season. And yeah, we hope to be all together again here come October and able to run it back as the Warriors are going to run it back in the 25-26 campaign.
Absolutely. Appreciate the chat. Best chat in the Bay. That's not going to change. And I'll talk to you guys shortly because we're not going anywhere in the long run.
Yeah, Greg's probably gonna be hopping the chat now. He's gonna hop off the stream, but he's gonna hop in the chat until he actually falls asleep. So, all right, Greg, have a good night, man. 808 KNBR. Let's get back to the phones. Here. I didn't want to make Greg hang out for more calls. He can listen to that while he's brushing his teeth. Rob in Lafayette is next here on Dubs OT at 808 KNBR. Hey, Rob. Oh, we've lost Rob. Do we have duck sauce? Duck sauce? How about ducks? All right, duck sauce in San Jose. What's going on tonight, duck sauce?
JD. Yeah, thanks. Real quick too. Shout out to you, Greg and Kyle. You guys really do great coverage. I did appreciate it all year. You guys are really good coverage. So shout out to all of you. I just had a few takes on kind of the future of the team now that we're eliminated. I know you kind of said earlier, and this is not a call to just beat up on all these guys, even though it's going to sound harsh, but I just think that we need more talent, JD. I'm looking at all these guys around the league that are multifaceted. They're athletic, they're long, they can dribble, they can shoot. They can defend multiple positions. We just got too many one-trick ponies, man. I love GP2, but he can't. If he's not defending, he's pretty much not playable. Healed the same way. And I know you said earlier you thought Pods was a regular season starter. To me, if Pods or Moody or any of those other guys are in the starting lineup, that's a problem. That's just excuse me. They're more of a 7th, 8th, 9th man to me. I definitely think it's reasonable to think Pods is going to improve offensively, but that's only half the equation to me. He cannot guard anybody. He couldn't guard a stop sign. Moody, I honestly truly want to root for the guy. I love his attitude. I love his demeanor. I really want him to be successful, but JD, he can't dribble. He's got no handle. He's not an athlete for NBA standards to me. He's not a high level athlete. He's got no layup package. We need more talent. And the only one that has talent is Kuminga, and he don't fit. So, we got to find a way to get some other guys in here, man. And another thing is, I really think it's time to start looking at Draymond as to taking a scaled back role on this team. I don't think he's a starter anymore. You're losing too much on the offensive end, living and dying whether or not he can hit a couple open threes every game. So I just, I'll go ahead. I'm sorry. I know I'm long-winded.
No, you're good. We'll have a conversation about it. I'll let you jump in and continue. I think as far as it's probably too many. That's probably too many issues to address all in one off season, but I think there's some truth to everything that you're bringing to the table, Duck Sauce. I think, I think we've saw enough from Pods. I'll kind of go through just quickly one through each. I think we saw enough from Pods in the regular season to where he can be a starter, but is that his ideal role on a championship contending team? And I think the answer to that is no. And I think it's the same thing with Moody. You're right. If Pods was your backup combo guard because you had a starting caliber guard next to Steph, and Moody was your backup wing because you had another starting caliber wing next to Jimmy in the front court, then we'd be having a different conversation. I think, and you wouldn't be quite as dependent on those guys. Draymond is interesting. I don't know that the Warriors can find a good enough front court player that could guard enough to where you could take him out of the starting line. The scenario where that would be the case would maybe be if you were able to get a Giannis, but again, that's a whole silly exercise. I think at this point. So, but that being said, I do think you have to you have to build the roster next year to where in the regular season you aren't as dependent on Draymond, and you have some again. To me, it's building options, Duck Sauce, to where if Pods isn't playing well, you have somebody to go to. If Moody isn't playing well, you have somebody to go to. If Draymond, over the course of the year, he's going to need nights off. His temper's going to get in the way. You want to keep him fresh. I think that's probably the compromise for him. You want to keep him fresh to where once you do get to the playoffs, you can play him a lot, but you also have a little bit of protection, in certain matchups with some teams that, are either the teams that give him problems, or it's the guy, and the players who give him problems are it's the physical guys, the big guys who also are skilled. If there's even a hole in anybody's skill, he's been able to take advantage of it. In this series, the Timberwolves, and even in the last series a little bit at times against Houston, they just went at him, and they went through him, and they went around him, and they went over him, and he got the better of Houston enough in that series for them to win it. But that did not happen in this series against Minnesota. Does it look different if Steph's around and maybe they're taking it out of the net a little bit? I mean, maybe a little bit, but again, I'll let you continue, Duck Sauce. But I think there is some truth to all of it, even though I don't think you can fix all of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. There's no quick fix to it. I don't really know where they go. I know that a lot of their money's tied up in the old guys. I do like what you said about even calling more Podziemski a combo guard, because I really don't think it's fair to him either to even call him the backup point. I mean, he's not a point guard to me. He doesn't have the foot speed. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's almost lucky the league doesn't call this quote unquote deceleration move a travel, because it is a travel. Everyone does it, but it's an absolute joke. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I mean, if he wasn't allowed to do that, he couldn't even get a shot off in the lane half the time. I mean, so I just, and it's not to bag on him. Like, he's going to have some growing pains. He did some good things this year, no doubt. But, yeah, I'll let you go, JD. But, yeah, I appreciate the time, man. Great year as always. And, I look forward to hearing you in the future.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Duck Sauce. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. It's Dubs OT here on KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader. We get into the 11 o'clock hour here. It is Dubs OT with JD. We got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios, and Rob in Lafayette is back on the phone lines here. So let's go ahead and get to Rob on Dubs OT, talking about tonight and talking about the season as a whole as the Warriors see it come to an end in Minneapolis. What's going on tonight, Rob? Rob, are you there? Did we lose Rob again?
Yeah, JD,
hey, what's up, Rob? I'm good, man. What's up? What's on your mind tonight, brother? Oh, Rob, put him on hold. Put Rob on hold. We'll try to get connected with Rob. That was not the issues in my head. All right, to the chat, Kyle. If Rob calls back, we'll put him back. We'll give him one more shot. I love Rob. But let's go through some chats here. GT65, Jimmy Butler is like a better Iguodala, smart, tough gamer. We just need another two-way player like a Clay, a few better bench players, and we're hoisting another banner. Again, they need a guard, they need a wing, and they need a big. That are somebody that gives you a Podziemski option, somebody that you can pair with Jimmy Butler in the front court, I think can start. Again, is it Emmanuel Quickly? Is it or Quentin Grimes? Is it Quentin Grimes? I always get those two confused. Is it Quentin Grimes who was crushing it after he got shipped out of Dallas? Is somebody that can kind of play a little bit of the Jordan Poole type of a role? Is it Cam Johnson, who might be a pipe dream when push comes to shove, but the guy that I would look to trade Jonathan Kuminga for? He would be that guy that I think would fit right next to Jimmy. You've got more shooting in the lineup. You could, I think, start Steph and Podziemski at that point. DeAnthony Melton's another, if he's healthy, name that we've brought up a lot on this show that could have the potential to be that combo guard. He enjoyed his time in the lead up to the season and the first 12 games of the season with the Warriors. And I do think they need to get another big. And I think there's going to be some tough questions about Kevon Looney and GP2 and, how does it all work out as far as that goes? But I really don't feel like, other than Kuminga, among the young players, there's a dramatic, this guy has to go. And again, I don't even think with Kuminga, it's this guy has to go, because he isn't talented. It's just he's the most talented chip in terms of an asset to bring somebody back, and he's the guy who fits the least. Like, it's more circumstantial than just get rid of the guy because he stinks. He doesn't stink. I mean, he's extremely talented, and I think the future is still obviously bright. But the Warriors can't be waiting around to try to fit him in next year. Like, those days are over, and I think what we saw down the stretch just tells the story as it relates to the inability for him to fit in. And again, hopefully for his sake and for the Warriors' sake, he increased his value to a point where the Warriors can get a little bit more for him. But yeah, they need better players around him. Robert Brown, if anyone thinks they would have got here with Wiggins, you should stop watching, talking, or thinking about basketball. Again, maybe I'm crazy. Those of you that have been with us the whole year, like, they wouldn't have even been in a play-in. I don't think, if they had just continued forward with down the path that they were at. And so, yeah, the Jimmy Butler trade was a rousing success. Honestly, to me, they went from 11 or 12 seed in the West to second round out in 5 games, kind of wondering what could have been had Stephen Curry not gotten hurt. So I'll say it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I think the Jimmy Butler trade was a complete success. Now you got to go add to the rest of the roster around what you have and try to improve. DVDV, gentlemen sweep at most. Warriors beat the Wolves 3-1 in the regular season without Butler. Injuries most definitely took their toll. Damn you, Houston. Houston, as we said, got their pound of flesh. And the Warriors' inability to close that series out, I don't think they should have closed the series out in 5. They probably should have closed it out in 6. Would that have mattered in the grand scheme of things? Would Steph have still come up with the injury? I mean, we'll never know. But, yeah, the Rockets got their pound of flesh. And I think, in fairness to the conversation about the Timberwolves, yes, the Warriors took 3 of 4 in the regular season without Jimmy, but the Timberwolves, like, they deserve some credit too. They are a much better team at the end of the year than they were at the beginning, and they made a major trade in the offseason. I mean, the team about conference finals for the second consecutive year, they traded Karl Anthony Towns, and they brought in Julius Randle, they brought in Dante DiVincenzo, and it really wasn't clicking early at all. But they got it together to a point where they ended up surpassing the Warriors on the final day of the season, and they've been great in the playoffs. Like, they're doing a great, like, they are no fluke. Anthony Edwards is no fluke. That dude is legit. Julius Randle's playing, I think, the most meaningful quality basketball of his career. Gobert's doing the things that he does well, and he's not killing them in other ways. Like, again, Conley saw, like, they just have a good, we mentioned this on YouTube, and I won't go all the way through it again, but we were talking about it on YouTube in the half hour before we got to the radio side. And just look at the Timberwolves. They have 8 useful players on their roster, like grown-up NBA rotation level players. The Warriors don't have that right now. And it's on them to have to figure out how to you got to get closer to that. And if you go through OKC, you go through Denver. Denver actually comes up a little bit short, but they've got Jokic and others. And I think Denver's got better starters than the Warriors do 1 through 5, obviously. I mean, Warriors would love to have a Gordon or a Michael Porter Jr. Those two would be, forget about Murray and Jokic or Jokic and Murray. Like, those two would be significant upgrades. Porter and Gordon would be significant major upgrades. But you go through Boston, New York, like, all these teams have 7, 8 legitimate, bona fide, grown up NBA rotation caliber players. And that's where the Warriors are going to have to get to. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627 LM in the chat. The Dubs messed themselves up by giving up Game 5 and Game 6 in Houston, lost all the potential rest time and the condensed schedule did them in this series. Yeah, tonight ended a run for the Warriors going all the way back. Remember when they had all the gap? Remember when it was 4 days off before game 1 in Houston, and then it was 2 days off before game 2 against the Rockets, and then it was 2 more days off before game 3 back at Chase? Well, tonight ends a string that began in that game 3 against Houston, which you go all the way back to the 26th of April and that game 3, and the Warriors went every other day for 2.5 weeks. They went every other day, the final 5 games of that series and the 5 games of this series, basically 3 weeks straight. They went every other day with multiple trips to Houston, with multiple trips to Minnesota, and every day was either a travel day or a recovery day from the travel or a game every single day for 3 weeks straight. And I do think that ultimately did the Warriors in as well. Well said, LM. Continuing here in the chat. DVDV, silver lining. Steph will now for sure have plenty of time to recover from his injury. That should bode well for next season. Already looking forward to more Curry magic. That is one thing that I didn't bring into the ethos. I didn't want to speak it into existence or anything like that. But I was thinking about it, I think middle of the second quarter, that it would be a blessing for the Warriors moving forward as long as they got out of the game tonight with nothing, no Jason Tatum type thing happening to somebody, or Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant. Like we've seen that in these other instances where the end of one season has the potential to completely screw up the next season. It's happened to the Warriors. And to get out of this year with that not being a thing, to where Jimmy Butler can wake up in Dubai on Friday morning or whatever needs to happen, or tomorrow morning, for all we know, whatever needs to happen for these guys to recover. They made it through, and now Steph can get his health in order, and you can move forward with the offseason, not having any unforeseen catastrophes that have to be dealt with here. Another one in the chat. Florida Dubs fan, would not be a stretch to say this team was going to the Western Conference Finals. Same thing could happen next year with seasoned vets instead of the bench we have currently. It could, but it's all, as I always say, it's all about giving yourself the best chance. You look at your weaknesses and you look to improve them. And again, I've laid it out pretty clearly. They need that veteran combo guard. They need that starting caliber wing that can really shoot it. They do need another big that doesn't have to be a ball dominant, throw it down to them, going to play 30 minutes, but they need somebody that's, if they want to keep Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II, then Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II, I think, have to be 11 to 15 players on the roster and not 6 to 10 players on the roster. If they want to keep them on minimums and for the vibes and the coachability and because Steve Kerr loves them but those guys have to be, I think, minimum type players. Those have got to be almost third string guys and not second string guys moving forward, because the reality is you just can't count on GP2 to play enough because of some of the injury issues that have popped up as well. Oh, Reed in LA next up here on the phone line. Sorry, Kyle, I didn't realize I looked away from the phone screen. Let's take these two and then we'll take a timeout. And then we'll get back into the chat. We'll do some sounds. But yeah, the same thing could happen next year, but that doesn't mean you don't try. And I think the Warriors owe it to Steph. They owe it to Draymond. They owe it to Jimmy to look to be able to try. Reed down in Southern California next year on the Sports Leader at 808 KNBR. Hey, Reed.
Hey, John. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you calling in. And what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I had such a fun time following this team this year, and I mean it's just been an incredible era with Kerr at the helm, and I have a kind of a sports hierarchy where I'm sort of a Giants fan first and the Warriors fan second, and now they're getting really close because it's just so much fun to be a fan of this team. I'm just really appreciative of that. And, even being down here in Southern California surrounded by Laker fans, it's fun that we got farther than they did.
Yeah.
And I would also say that this team has had like so many surprising performances this year, post and these people coming kind of out of nowhere, it felt like. So that was really cool, from a fan to see different people contribute. And of course, like Butler was insane. So I'm all for him next year. And I think that you're right. It's going to be a different mix around Curry, Butler, and Draymond.
Yeah, I think a little more veteran mix. And again, there's a difference between veteran and old. You don't want to get, to me, you don't want the 35-year-old guys. You want guys that are closer to 29, 30, 31. Then I think you have enough of the 35-plus players, and you still have some good young players that I think with a little bit of a lesser role can be maybe more impactful, and you're less dependent on the Pajemskis and the Moody's, on a night in, night out basis. But thank you for the call. Thank you for the kind words, Reed, down in Los Angeles. And we appreciate you being a part of this thing as we've talked to Warriors after just about every game this season. I think we took 1 or 2 off because we had a little 49er conflict early in the year. But yeah, we've been, through the 82 game grind, and then with the Warriors playing the 12 in the playoffs. I mean, we're talking about 94 games doing Dubs OT. I think we had 92 or 93 of them here for the Sports Leader, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Ian in Oakland is next here on Dubs OT following the Warriors' season-ending loss to the Timberwolves. What's going on tonight, Ian?
JD, my main man on the Warriors coverage.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you more, man, because I listen to you like after every game. But I waited to call you. I haven't called you since before the Jimmy Butler trade. But now that we've all seen it play out, it came out in the wash. The only take that I have tonight is that I feel like if Steph, because Steph is the only name that we really talk about at the top of the ledger. If we're going to get ring number 5 for Steph, I personally feel like it's going to come down to Steph's adaptability. I feel like the NBA has outgrown the system. I feel like the younger players they can play around the system that was. Tonight made me think about the Olympics. The Olympics when they weren't really playing, the Warriors system, even though, Steve Kerr was the coach and Steph was on that team. They weren't playing the Warriors system. Of course, they had a much better roster. But when it comes down to it, they were playing Steph the last couple of games was able to be, really instrumental in getting them a win. And in that last, classic game and all that kind of stuff, Steph closed. It wasn't read and react motion for 4 quarters and all that kind of stuff. So my only take tonight, I hope you guys do another, or a few Dubs OTs throughout the off season as it plays out. My thing is, if Steph, like we say, get Steph number 5. If Steph really has an opportunity to get number 5, in my opinion, it may be time, because I know that he can do it. It may be time for Steph to just, because he's a genius, he's up there with the greats.
Okay, where are you going with this, Ian?
My thing is this: it may be time for a different role, a different cast, because he brought home the gold in the Olympics.
Well,
and it wasn't.
Ian,
this
let me ask you
system
this.
where
You're talking about changing the system, or are you talking about? I mean, are you talking about moving on from Draymond? Are you talking Jimmy's on the team, right? It's Steph and Jimmy. It's I think Draymond's on the team unless and I don't even like saying it, unless that Giannis thing. I think the only way Draymond's not on the team is if somehow they could get Giannis, and Draymond's got to be in the deal for the salary purposes to make that happen, which is obviously a pipe dream. But I'm just giving you what I'm saying is those 3 are on the team. So when you say system change or different way, like who are you talking about?
JD, are we going to bring, if we could bring Giannis in, which we probably couldn't do, but even if we could, we're not going to ask Giannis to play in the system that is right now. It would change anyway, right?
It would probably have to, yes, if Draymond's not around.
Come on.
But what is the change? But what is the change, Ian? What is the change?
Steph adapting to a new role and not running around 3 miles a game and everyone wants, looking for Steph at all costs, and the system, like, it was set up at first as strength in numbers and whatever, but now it's turned into read and react and, look for Steph. If you can't find Steph, then make a shot with the grenade or whatever. My thing is, I feel like Steph at this point, and, all of us as Warrior fans and all that kind of stuff, I guess you can say that I'm a guy who I feel like no one's scared of the system or doesn't know how to beat the system anymore. So for Steph,
I also think you need better players, though, Ian. Like I think if you have one more guard that can attack a little bit, that's better at it and more seasoned than Podziemski, that is confident in taking a shot when it's there for him, I think you can, I think that can work. If you have, and I use his name all the time, not a perfect player, but like if you have a Cam Johnson who's getting the ball kicked to him in the spots that Moses Moody gets the ball kicked to him, he's going to knock those threes down at a 3 out of 7, 4 out of 7 clip. On high volume throughout a season, and that's going to continue to open then both those guys are going to get their stuff opened up because they're going to for Steph and vice versa and all of that. So I don't know, man. I think there's a debate to be had, but I think it's more just get better players who fit the system, and I think the system has proven that it can still work if you do that. I agree with you in the sense that nobody fears the system unless the players are at a certain level that are going to be playing it. I'll meet you on that, Ian.
Well, JD, the thing that sticks out to me is that I don't feel like any fringe players that can fit within the small amount of money that we have, because Jimmy's going to be making 60, Steph's going to be making 60, Draymond with the 25, like. Cam Johnson being on this team would not be the difference between them making it from where they were tonight with a hurt Steph Curry to still making it to the final. I don't believe.
No, but they weren't going to do it without. Well, they weren't going to do it without Cam Johnson with Steph hurt. No, Cam Johnson with Steph healthy. I think they're going to the finals. Like Steph still has to be healthy. I mean that part's a given. But the difference between this team, kind of flaming out or falling apart physically is, if a guy like, just using him as an example, if a guy like Cam Johnson's on the roster all year, maybe there isn't as much wear and tear on Steph throughout the course of the whole year because he's alleviating some of that pressure because he's actually a bona fide wing player that can shoot the 3 ball that the Warriors really haven't had a wing. They've had guards, but they haven't had a wing that can do it since Durant. Wiggins a little bit. They really haven't had a wing shooter since Durant. Now Cam's not Durant. Again, I don't want to. He's just a shooter, but they haven't had a guy that could do that, that could open that up. So I don't know. I'll meet you a little. You're not winning any playoff series with Steph or Jimmy out. That's just a reality. You can win some individual games. But I don't know, Ian, is that fair? Well, I'll let you have the final word on this.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'd like to remind everyone that what we're dealing with right now in real time is Jimmy with a broken butt. Steph really did come up hurt. There's no guarantee that won't happen again next year. They're all going to be older. So
you're right, but you can't live in fear of it either. You can't live in fear of it either, Ian. You got it. I'm
not living in fear. I'm a realist, actually, So
yeah,
I'm just saying these things could happen again. So I just personally feel like, if we want to get Steph number 5, we may have to approach it a different way. That's my only take. I feel like everyone should be on the table except for Steph and Curry, including the system. And
Okay.
I may call you again during the off season.
Oh, please do. And we are going to do some shows, and we're going to do on Saturday as well. 10 to noon is going to be one, but look for them. We're going to make sure we'll get them out on social media. When we do them, we'll make sure you can find them. So I appreciate you, Ian.
I'll be tuned in. Thanks, man.
All right, man. Appreciate it. 808 KNBR, we are overdue for a timeout. Kyle's going to kill me. We do have time for another couple of calls here. We also got to get the sounds of Dubs OT, which we're going to do coming back, and our fun with numbers and more in the chat. And we're suddenly running out of time here because we got to get out in about the next 25, 30 minutes. So timeout right now. Warriors lose to the Timberwolves 121-110, and we are talking about it here on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back. Sounds of Dubs OT here. Warriors lose 121-110. Timberwolves win the series 4-1. They go on to the conference finals. More of the YouTube chat coming up. Best YouTube chat in sports. Also a season-ending edition of Fun with Numbers between now and midnight. But let's get to it. Our Sounds of Dubs OT, a couple from Steve Kerr, one from Jimmy Butler, and then a couple from Draymond Green to close things out. All right, the first, Steve Kerr, addressing big plays in big moments and not really wanting to go to the Warriors loss because Steph Curry got hurt card.
Yeah, I mean, injuries are, part of the playoffs. I learned a long time ago, the playoffs are really about health and then just guys stepping up and making some big shots, big plays, in key games. That's what decides every series. And so we've been on both ends of that, and it's just part of it. So there's no sense in dwelling on it. And, I don't want to take anything away from what Minnesota just accomplished. So no sense in even talking about Steph.
So there you go. Steve Kerr not wanting to have it. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I think everybody knows the situation. Where the Warriors win or lose this series without, with Steph Curry, I mean, that is something that can be debated, but it's probably a fool's errand to debate. It happened. The Timberwolves could have won this series even if Steph had played. They were a very good team, and it effectively ended when Steph went out. But I think, as Steve points out, again, the fact that the Warriors have been in this position. The Warriors have been in the position where they've won playoff series in part, one, because they were the better team, but two, because others had gotten hurt. It's just part of the equation. So there's no sense dwelling on it or making excuses about it. And I would expect Steve Kerr, obviously, to not do that, and he didn't. All right, another one from Steve Kerr on the season as a whole, not so much tonight, but being able to flip it from where they were at the trade deadline, 1 under 500, to get all the way to 48 wins and then to win a round in the playoffs before eventually losing to the Timberwolves. Here's the head coach.
It was a fight. Really proud of our guys. They hung in there and they battled the whole way through, and quite a turnaround in our season, from where we were a few months ago to giving ourselves a chance and having a swing at the plate, for some real chances to go deep. And we were right there, and obviously didn't go our way. But again, the Wolves were great. They deserved it, and I'm very proud of our team.
So there you go. More thoughtful words from Steve Kerr there. And I do think this team, it's frustrating the way some of the young players played in the playoffs, the debate about Steph and the injury. You've got old players, you've got young players. But the truth is the fact that, this team does, when you take a step back, a couple of steps back. Again, I encourage everybody to think about where you were February 5th and think about some of the shows and some of the conversations we were having in January when it looked like this team really had. I mean, they were talking on the MLK holiday. It was trending down a road. Remember they got beat by 40 by Boston. I mean, it was trending down the road of basically, I think, shutting Steph and Draymond down at the deadline. If they weren't able to make a big move, they took a big swing. Again, the big swing paid off because this team is, and this is reality. This is not sugarcoating a damn thing. This team is closer now today, May 15th here in Minneapolis, still May 14th for another 24 minutes back in the Bay. This team is closer right now to winning a championship than they were on February 5th by a lot. Doesn't mean they will, doesn't mean they can hold up, doesn't mean the young players will continue to develop promisingly, doesn't mean that they'll end up making the right moves in the offseason that put them over the top, but they are closer and have a shot at a greater rate than they would have had they done nothing at all. And I think that's something that needs to be remembered. One more from Steve Kerr. This, Kyle, we want to play X. I just want to make sure I double check with Kyle. We're going to play X. Okay. He did take a question about title chances. And he did get into a little bit of Steph's health as he discussed that.
Actually, I don't even have to think whatever. I know we had a shot. I know we could have gone the distance. Maybe we wouldn't have, but it doesn't matter. Again, everything in the playoffs is about who stays healthy and who gets hot. Are you playing well at the right time? Do you have multiple guys step up in key games, make shots? And do you have good health? And, you see it every year in every series. And so there's a little bit of luck involved, and we, like I said, we've been on both sides of that, and that's just part of it.
Yeah, and the Warriors are on the short end of that again here in this one tonight as they see their season come to an end. But I think the fact that they believe that they had a shot is something that they can carry with them as they look to improve the roster moving forward into the offseason and wherever next season begins. Let's hear one from Jimmy, then we're going to hear a couple from Draymond Green. Here is Jimmy Butler post-game, starting to delve a little bit into next season if this team can get healthy and try to make another go of this thing.
Yeah, it is tough, but it's tough on both sides, West and East. And like I just said, if we're healthy, if all of this and if all of that, then it may be different. We don't know. But we're going to take our chances for sure if Steph is out there. But, we'll come back and figure this thing out and next year do the same thing.
Yeah, and look, this team projects to be good. I don't think they're going to be able to necessarily play as hard for as long, having an older roster. Like, again, that's where the depth comes in. The depth gets you through the long haul of the 82-game season. They're not going to play, guts out on the line at the level that they did, I think, next year through 82. So don't think that the 23-8 is going to be the level that they can play at over the course of an 82, because there's going to be rest nights, and I'm just doing the math in my head here just for grins. I mean, yeah, the 23-8 over 82 would be 60 wins. I would say but as you look at where the Western Conference ended up, they're not a 60-win team. Can they be a 52-win team? If they're a 52-win team, maybe they're second or third in the Western Conference, and I think that's exactly where you want to be. You want to be in the top four as it relates to next year. All right, couple of more here from Draymond. Draymond addressing where this team currently sits and the job that the front office has ahead here coming up through the summer.
Well, I think we'll be right back at it. Sucks to end this way, but we think we got the pieces to make another run at it and do it again, and that's going to be our mindset going into the summer. Do all that got to do to improve. We got one of the best ownership groups and front offices in the NBA. They'll do whatever they feel is needed to help the team improve, and us as players, you got to get back in the lab and do what you got to do to get better.
Yeah, and part of that, there is work to do, but you don't have to commit to going all in the way the Warriors did. I keep going back to what Mike Dunleavy said in Los Angeles when they made the trade. They've chosen a direction. The direction is go all in to try to get the fifth ring. So nothing should be off the table as it relates to this offseason. And look, they may not be able to get Giannis. That may be a freaking pipe dream. It truly might. But they're going to try. Like, I guarantee, and I'm going to say this real quick on that. I know we're up against it, Kyle. They better be careful with the Giannis thing, because, and I'm just going to throw this out there right now, we'll come back to it at different points. They better be careful with the Giannis thing, because they're going to be interested and they're going to try. But the only way there's a Giannis deal that can be done is if either Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green are in the deal. And if you tick off Jimmy Butler by after 31 games and everything he gave to you by throwing him in, think Kevin Durant being upset, like you better not have his name be in a bunch of trade rumors, already, when it seemed like maybe he had just found again, because the one thing you do not want is a ticked off Jimmy Butler next year, because we've seen how that plays out, especially after he gave his heart and soul to this team for the 31 games plus the 12 playoff games that he played in. All right, one more from Draymond. He addressed Jonathan Kuminga. You tell me after hearing this whether you think Jonathan Kuminga is coming back or not. Draymond talking about Kuminga's pending restricted free agency.
You can always do, or the one focus that I would say is your consistency. Doing it on a nightly basis. And I think, you look at those guys, and Moses as well, Guy Santos, QP, Pat, they all made tremendous strides throughout the course of your Trace. And it'll be a big summer for all of them. Obviously, JK's got the contract situation. I always wish him the best with that, been in that situation, whether it's here or elsewhere, you just wish them the best. But I think, we saw the growth from those young guys. Next year for all of them, you hope to see them take that next big step that they're all capable of.
All right, so Draymond Green there on Jonathan Kuminga, so stay tuned. I think he understands and acknowledges the fact that it's a distinct possibility that maybe JK isn't back and with the Warriors next season. All right, let's take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll do some fun with numbers and our final installment of Kyle's Clicks. It is Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
All right, we're back. It's our final segment. It's Dubs OT with JD, final segment for the season. Want to let everybody know we got less than 3 minutes until we got to get out of here. So we're gonna skip the whole fun with numbers because the season's over and there really aren't a lot of fun numbers at all to get to. We're going to get right to Kyle's clicks and then we're going to do some thank yous. So Kyle, just run through a bunch of these here. Bennett Roth, appreciate you. One of our regulars that's become a regular. Dubs fans in the chat, Florida Dubs fan. Dubs OT sweet spot when the Dubs have a back-to-back on a Friday, Saturday. That 48 hours, Dubs OT, just Dubs, paradise. It is. We're looking forward to more of that. JD Silverhar, it's been a pleasure. From Mario. And then, Kyle, I'm just going to let you roll here with a bunch of these. I'm not going to read all of them, but a lot of thank yous in the chat here. And we just appreciate it. Otis Bird is the best. Yeah, they are starting to turn the lights down a little bit. I think I'm going to get out just in time.
This one is real, and I'm glad Otis sent this because JD has been such a workhorse and a trooper the whole season, going back and forth to providing the best Dubs coverage in the Bay for you guys. So really, honestly, kudos to JD.
I live for it. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's not something that's going away. I'll say that. Point blank, bottom line, end of story. You can quote me on that. You can put it in the podcast. You can, whatever. You can clip it for social. It's what I do. And I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. And yeah, it's been a blast from Hawaii to Minneapolis. Who knew where the thing would start and where it would end? Otis, we'll make that our comment of the night here to close things out. I know we got about 45 seconds. I want to thank Kyle Haar. I want to thank Greg Silver. I mean, the job that Kyle did, tremendous this season, stepping in for Greg as Greg got elevated. We love Greg. Greg continuing to be a part of this show and Just Dubs. Just couldn't have it any other way. For everybody, or the Ryan McCarthy's and Jordan and Casey Copeland and everybody I'm going to forget, Kyle Chung's plus minus.
Kyle Chung.
And Austin Scott's going to get a shout out too because he is truly the best digital guy going, and he covered all these press conferences all year and did an unbelievable job. He is a true freaking star, probably the best guy at his job at our station. So for everybody, we'll talk to you Saturday. We'll wrap this up on Just Dubs. But yeah, for everybody on Dubs OT, we love you. We appreciate you. KNBR, the sports leader.